You're listening to the Bold Dreams Held Loosely podcast. I am your host, Taryn Watts, and I am joined in this episode with my co-host, Michelle Theriault. We are in her screened-in porch in the summer in this episode, and today we're talking about the messiness in between, in what Dannon Perry talks about as the void of the past is gone, the future is not yet here. That messy middle that we have to all navigate as we reach for our dreams. We hope you enjoy. Okay, we're going to start this episode, and I'm going to read The Parable of the Trapeze by Dannon Perry. Sometimes I feel that my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging on to a trapeze bar, swinging along, or, for a few moments in my life, I'm hurtling across space in between trapeze bars. Most of the time, I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar of the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I'm in control of my life. I know most of the right questions and even some of the answers. But every once in a while, as I'm merrily, or even not so merrily, swinging along, I look out ahead of me into the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar swinging towards me. It's empty, and I know in that place inside of me that knows that this new trapeze bar has my name on it. It is my next step, my growth, and my aliveness coming to get me. In my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I must release my grip on this present, well-known bar and move to the new one. Each time it happens to me, I hope, no, I pray, that I won't have to let go of my old bar completely before I grab the new one. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on my old bar, and for some moment in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab onto the new bar. Each time I am filled with terror. It doesn't matter that in all my previous hurdles across the void of unknowing, I have always made it. I am each time afraid that I will miss, that I will be crushed on unseen rocks in the bottomless chasm between bars. I do it anyway. Perhaps this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance policy. But you do it anyway because somehow to keep hanging on to that old bar is no longer on the list of alternatives. So for an eternity that can last a microsecond or 1,000 lifetimes, I soar across the dark void of the past is gone, the future is not yet here. It's called transition. I have come to believe that this transition is the only place that real change occurs. I mean real change, not the pseudo change that only lasts until the next time my old buttons get punched. I have noticed that in our culture, this transition zone is looked upon as a no thing, a no place between places. Sure, the old trapeze bar was real, and that new one coming towards me, I hope that's real too. But the void in between? Is that just a scary, confusing, disorienting nowhere that must be gotten through as fast and as unconsciously as possible? No. What a wasted opportunity that would be. I have a sneaking suspicion that the transition zone is the only real thing, and the bars are illusions we dream up to avoid the void where the real change, the real growth occurs for us. Whether or not my hunch is true, it remains that the transition zones in our lives are incredibly rich places. They should be honored, even savored. Yes, with all the pain and fear and feelings of being out of control that can, but not necessarily accompany transitions, they are still the most alive, most growth-filled, passionate, expansive moments in our lives. So, transformation of fear may have nothing to do with making fear go away, but rather with giving ourselves permission to hang out in the transition between trapezes. Transforming our need to grab that new bar, any bar, is allowing ourselves to dwell in the only place where real change really happens. It can be terrifying. It can also be enlightening in the true sense of the word. Hurtling through the void, we may just learn how to fly. And again, that's from Dannon Perry in his book, Warriors of the Heart.
Mm.
Isn't that a beautiful?
Yeah.
So, as you and I were chatting about what are we going to talk about today, and we're in a different setup for those of you watching. We're Mandy, who's our producer, is on mat leave, so we've got our kind of our makeshift setup right now, which is actually really beautiful. We're in Michelle's backyard in her screened-in porch. I don't know if you can hear like the crickets, and she's got chickens out there, and you might hear some chicks. I don't know. You never know. But when we were talking about like what we're going to talk about today, this this void, or this like the being in the middle of the bars, is both very present for us right now.
Mm-hmm. And we realized that because when we were talking about, we had these fun ideas about what it's like summertime, we're going to be on the screen porch. It's going to be light and fun. We had these ideas, and I woke up today and I was like, oh, I don't feel fun inside.
Yeah.
I don't feel inspired. I thought about sometimes there's all these themes we want to talk about. There's like this backlog we have of like all these wonderful topics. And I imagined, oh, what about this one? And it felt so like phony.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't tap into that. And
yeah.
I feel like in a, what's the word? I don't know what I feel a little like, I don't really know where I am. Not feeling really inspired. It's a lull. Um, I also felt like a little vulnerable. Like, what do I want to show right now? What do I want to say? And then as you were sharing where you are and what you're feeling, which is very different, but I don't know, it seems like this theme really applies to both of us right now, where are you?
Yeah.
Do you feel in this metaphor, in this parable?
I feel like I'm hurtling across bars.
Okay.
And that's what I feel. I feel right now is this it's the void in between. And it's funny because I've been here many times. I think, if we think about growth as like this cyclical process, again, like Dannon Perry talks about, you're either hanging on to a bar and you're good and things feel stable and steady, or you're about to reach for a new one, and or you're in the complete, like, just completely let go of both. And that's where I am right now in my life. I'm in the
Yeah.
I'm in the hurdle. And I think that I've been here so many times. So there's this really deep part of me that knows everything's going to be okay. I have no idea what it's going to look like at the end, or what that next trapeze bar will look like.
Yeah.
But there's this part of me that knows, I think because I have evidence now that's built up over time of these voids. You know what I also love though about this journey and the voids of that we feel in the moments of growth is, I think my favorite emotions are awe and wonder. I've told you this before. And nothing brings me more awe and wonder than grabbing on to the next bar and being like, whoa, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And sometimes the bar looks exact. Can I even say that? Maybe I can't even say that. Sometimes there's elements that look the same than how I envisioned it would. But other times there's been these surprises that come along the way, and just like magic that happens, and the awe and wonder that I'm like brought to my knees feeling I don't think would be possible without experiencing the void beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I do. What you are calling on wonder, in my mind, occurs as magic.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it feels worth it for me to surrender and fly through this place where you think you might fall or never, like the bar might be an illusion. It's like, you thought that was a bar. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it's worth it is because of like the magic on the other side. Like I just want a life with magic so bad.
Yeah.
And this is like the route for me to magic and like on wonder. Like it is.
Yeah.
Taking that leap of faith, flying through the air. This is the only way I know to get to the magic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the other day, I already shared this with you a little bit, Michelle, but the other day I had like just a really nice quiet day to myself. The kids were at camp and I I just needed a day just to be with myself and not work. And I I took out all my old journals for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And I just started reading them. So it's been um I actually like mapped it all out because I was like looking at the dates and I was like, oh my gosh, I was mapping out the last 7 years. And I would say it's been the last 7 years where not 7 years since like I've been diving into spirituality and and even I've been coaching for longer. I've been coaching for over a decade, but I think it has been 7 years since I have like deeply, 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 deeply committed to listening to that inner voice inside, like really, really connecting to that beyond anything else, and trusting one foot in front of the other, trusting those next best steps, and making sure it's coming from that place.
Yeah.
It's been a 7 year journey of committing to that. And it's so many fascinating, I realized so many fascinating things just looking at the journey. So the first thing is that there it there were so many times as I'm reading through my journal, and I didn't even remember some of this stuff, but there were things I thought I can see my mind's pattern of so wanting to grasp to the details of the vision and the hows and the like, this is what it will look like. And what's interesting is that as I mapped that journey out and I looked at like what I was actually like praying for in my journal and what I was worried about and what I was what like the void I was in at that moment, um it was like things the way the vision unfolded was different than how my mind thought it would unfold in certain ways. So as an example, 7 years ago, you might not even like know that this is 7 years ago, but we were trying to start a food business.
That was 7 years ago?
Yeah. So
Oh my
so
gosh.
7 years ago.
Holy
Yeah.
moly.
So 7 years ago, I had just, gone back to work, or I was on mat leave with Shay and I was going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I had this inspiration and this desire to create a business.
Yeah.
And we were both very passionate about food and family dinners, and so we wanted to we created My Family Table. It was a food prep service. And in my like I have like my journal entries of like the vision for it and like leaving my corporate job to be an entrepreneur, and like and this is what I just had fixated, that this was the
route.
this was the route to get me to what I was truly yearning for, which was freedom, which was on being an entrepreneur, which was getting my kids on and off the bus every day, which was not working for anyone, which was unlimited income potential, like that was what I was yearning for. Right. But my mind was like, I got you. I and it fixated. And we had so much fun in the creative stages of this. And it didn't turn, it turned not fun for us. The moment we were ready to launch a business and we were ready we realized, I remember my dad sitting us down because he was kind of helping us with like the business aspect of things. And he like wanting us to really realize what we were committing to, like the hours of owning a brick and mortar, kitchen, and the things that were really important to us, like family and family meals. He's like, you do realize that you're going to be working on weekends and evenings, and it was that realization that just everything was kind of like, oh,
that's exactly
and the dream fizzled out.
Yeah.
And so as I'm looking at this journey, there were so many different dreams I had. At one point, I thought that Dawn and I were going to start a company called Vision Night, and we were going to do vision boards, and it was going to be global, and it was going. So it's almost like I could see my mind grasping for the next thing that it was going to be.
Yeah.
And but like beneath that was the actual, like the yearning was the same: impact, freedom, like creative freedom, income freedom. Like I those were all things I was deeply yearning for, but my mind was grasping. And there were so many pivots along the way. It was almost like a relentless pivoting. That feeling over here. Okay, no, that's not quite it. Let's go over here. And it was so cool to see the unfoldment. It was so cool to zoom out. I think so often I can like zoom in on my like problem of the moment or challenge of the moment or even joy of the moment.
Yeah.
But to be able to zoom out and like look at the actual unfoldment, it's pretty incredible.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So you said before, now you have evidence. So you get to see the whole thing. You have evidence of every time it works out. Aside just from knowing this is going to work out somehow, what wisdom is there for you?
I heard this quote the other day from Michael Bernard Beckwith. Let me see if I can remember it properly. He says, action without vision is chaos. Vision without action is a fantasy. And those words really, 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 really resonated with me. And when I look at the past 7 years, there was a lot of steps, like a lot of those next best steps, taking those steps forward. And there was a lot of vision. But it was not by no means a linear path.
Yeah.
And by no means an easy path. I think what's here for me as I look back at that and like collect the wisdom from that, like when I was reading the pages of those journals, I wanted to like go back to my self, 5 to 7 years ago and say, I was looking at all the worry and all the fear and all the emotions and all the like so much, that was coming up as I was taking those steps, and I was like hurtling through these voids and the scariness of all that. And I wish I could go back to that version of me and say, don't worry,
Yeah.
like it's all going to be okay. and it's going to work out more beautiful than you had imagined it would.
Yeah.
Like, release that grip. So I think the wisdom for me is, and I feel what's different about me today than me 7 years ago when I was just starting that, and the evidence I've collected over time is I'm less attached now to the house. And yeah, I'm less attached to the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the turmoil and the feels like it's slowly releasing its hold on me a little bit. Like every year, just like, every year the hold gets a little bit lighter or loosened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Like, everything you're saying makes sense. And I have almost like this weird little almost sadness as I hear you say it, because I'm like, it's so true. I believe every word you're saying. And I have similar evidence. And in some moments I feel similarly surrendered. But right now in this moment, it's like I can't access the comfort from it. Not because I like don't believe it, not because I'm like gripped with fear. You know the second part of the quote you said?
Vision.
So action without vision is chaos. Vision without action is a fantasy.
Yeah.
There's something around that makes me go, because so it feels so true to me, and I very much understand in my body and in my life what action without vision looks like and feels like and ends up like.
Action without vision. Yeah.
Action without vision, I'm like,
yeah,
this does
chaos.
not work for me.
Chaos.
I've learned from that. It takes me down dead ends. I waste so much energy, and
yes. It's the detoured route. It's the rat race. It's yeah.
So I very much know that is so clear. No more unnecessary detours. Some detours you just, that's where life takes you, right? But sometimes you can learn enough to not take too many needless detours.
Yeah.
And I feel like no more unnecessary detours. And then, but that other part about vision with no action is a fantasy, that causes turmoil in me, because I'm so committed to not taking actions that take me chaotic detours. But right now I'm in this place of like emptiness and stillness, and I don't know what the actions are. It feels like there are no actions for me other than being things. And my fear is, that is my biggest fear. What if it's a fantasy? And so hearing a wise person reflect, I'm like, that's my fear. This wise man is telling me. And so so it's like this place where and it makes me feel like a little, not sad, not even grief, but some sort of like, what if it is all going to be a fantasy and I'm just sitting and there's nothing to do right now but sit here and wonder, how long am I going to be in this place for? Where I don't know the actions. It doesn't feel like there are actions.
What if that, like in and of itself, is the action?
Sit in the action and feel, or sit in it and feel the.
Like, what do you know about inspired action? What does it feel like for you?
I actually feel like my body wants to do it.
Yeah. And if we think about, so you've got inspired action versus action without vision, which is chaos, which is just going literally in circles. I remember many, many years of my life feeling like this. I remember many years of my life, year over year, feeling like I am in the exact same spot I was last year.
Yeah.
And the exact same spot I was the year before. And like some things have changed in my outer circumstance, but internally I feel the same. It's like nothing was moving.
Yeah.
That's like such a stuck, to me, that's how I know if if my actions are not being driven by my vision, by my yearnings. It's like I'm feeling this stuckness. But I'm moving and I'm acting, but but inspired action.
Yeah.
Does feel like your whole body is propelling you forward. Like something, and it might be scary, but something is pulling you forward.
Yeah.
There's like this wisdom of life that is pulling you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the two very well.
Yes.
But you're in this other place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Just like the word surrender is just so loud. So you're right. I'm not in either place, really. And I can't force myself into either. And in this absence, in the absence of a trapeze bar,
Mm-hmm.
it feels very much like surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's little bits of fear or sadness or past grief to like let come up and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing major, but little things to come up and clear. Or maybe major things. I don't know.
We will see.
We'll see. Yeah. Yeah, but I interrupted what were you going to ask?
No, it's just striking me. To me, it's striking me as what you're describing does feel like action.
Yeah.
I think part of the rat race over here of action without vision is the suppression of emotions, the suppression of what wants to come up, the suppression of, there can be a desire to just like keep moving in some direction so that I feel like I'm moving somewhere, and then I'm not left to deal with my uncomfortable emotions of what it feels like to not move.
Yeah. Totally.
I don't know. It's just, I think maybe, I wonder if there's a new definition of action, or maybe even the word action is not the right word for you.
I think that's what it is, because everything you're saying, it's so funny how quickly hearing that phrase made my mind go,
yeah,
because really that's what I've been trusting in this past little window of time where I'm in this no man's land. That's what I trust in, that the most important thing is not a doing, but a being. Who am I being? Feels so important. Who am I being on the inside? Because even whatever bar I've just let go of and whatever bar I'm swinging to is actually an internal thing too.
Yeah.
It really is, like, more than ever for me right now. It's not like I'm swinging from one relationship to a new type of relationship, or from
one job to another. Yeah, totally. I hear you.
It's like this internal shift is the core of it. So even more so, it feels like it's not about doing, it's about being. And yet hearing that quote from someone who I'm like, he's so wise. I like things. He knows things, right? Grips a part of my brain that goes, so you aren't doing enough and it's going to be a fantasy. It's, being this version of you isn't going to, it isn't going to result in all the good feelings you want to feel. So that fear is like obviously triggered easily,
What did Bobby say in one of our first episodes of season 1? She said, what was it? Never waste a good trigger.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you say that?
Yeah,
or did I hear that another time? Never waste a good trigger.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so how do I not waste that
Well,
one?
I think that's what you're doing. It's
Right.
just like recognizing that what I just said just mirrored
It did.
a huge fear
That it's a fantasy.
that it's a fantasy.
Yeah, that is true. I do have that fear. I do have the fear that all of like the lovely, rich, wonderful, magical, I was going to say things I want, but like just ways I want my life to be and the ways I want to be and the ways I want things to just come to me, that it's a fantasy. And um yeah, that is still, it's like it's so funny um to like declare a new vision. You're like, oh, I believe in this, it's wonderful. And then, and I do, and now I'm in that phase of where I'm like sinking into it, and to be that person and to make it real, I'm feeling the doubt and the fear, and like, what if it's a fantasy? Yeah.
The opposite of what you're.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you want to share what what does it look like? What are some of the pieces of the dream?
Yeah. I mean, do you mean like the specifics that feel like, what if they're a fantasy?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think they're right in my vision statement. Where in the last time I probably said this out loud, I probably felt like,
yeah,
this is what I'm going to fall in.
Right.
And right now, so,
right.
So really the piece around, this is not what it says in my vision statement, but this morning, one thing I've been repeating to myself is, I am she who receives magically while resting. So it's all about, the way I want just things, abundance to flow to me while I'm just like rest and peace and stillness. Like I marvel at, look how magical it is that like things just come to me while I'm in a restful state. That feels like, yeah, that feels like, my sister gave me a good word this morning. We were talking and she gave me the word collapse. How do you open yourself to the things you want without collapsing? So it's like, I know that that paragraph in my vision is that's what my heart wants. That's the bar I want to believe that I'm going to be swinging on down the road. And so in order for that to be true, I have to let go of my grasping mind of trying to like figure out the hows, and I have to rest. I have to be that person in rest, in trust, or else it's not my vision. And so while I'm resting, how do I not collapse the rest, collapse the trust because of the fear? And that's that. I think that's where I am now. How do I stop myself from collapsing into the old version? Yeah.
What's the old version?
The old version is my brain trying to figure out how the hows. Okay. What could I set up to give myself passive income so it feels like I'm resting? Maybe, but it's like all
figuring out
it's like,
the details.
if I want to rest, then okay, what could it be? And kind of like what you're saying before, what mattered to you is like all the different kinds of freedom, getting your kids off the bus, the financial freedom, the and was my family table, then it's vision night, then it's this. So my brain will think of strategies. maybe this strategy? What if I create this? What if I create an online course? What if I create, okay, what if I do this? What if I do, like, what if I, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Yeah. My brain does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like every brain must do that.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
If we think about it's the brain, the mind, our minds are the ones who want to cling to the trapeze bar.
Yeah.
Like, is that it? You know,
Yeah.
like cling, safety,
Yeah.
cling there.
Yeah. And it's more, so there's more. So when you ask me, like, what is it? You know, what's the piece that, what's the piece or what are the pieces of my vision that I'm like, oh, maybe it's a fantasy. I think there's more pieces than that too. It's like, it's not just a thing. It's not just financial freedom or prosperity. It's also, um, it's like a deeper layer of that. I think what I'm actually craving is the feeling of freedom and receivership, like deep, deep, deep freedom to in every moment be so free to, like, it's going to sound so simple, but I'm hungry, then I can eat. I'm full, then I can stop. I'm tired, then I can rest. I'm angry, I can be angry. I'm fed up, I can be fed up. I'm done with this project, I'm done with this project. I'm inspired to do some, like, um living like the rest of the world doesn't exist, like society doesn't exist, like schedules don't exist, like freedom. And also a feeling of just generally receiving more in every way, in like, um I'm so grateful for my relationship. Like, it's so wonderful. I receive so much, but even more love, even more, not love's not love's not the right word. Even more, um, just like pleasure and slowness and being adored and luxuriating and, um, yeah. So like all, it's like this vague blanket of all these different areas that I want to feel so good that I wander around being like, oh, everything feels good. And I don't mean I don't feel pain and I don't feel sadness. I don't feel loss. Those things can all be there. But like the freedom to get really emotional whenever I want to get emotional, the freedom to cry whenever I want to cry, you know, no matter what's going on, the freedom to, like, the freedom that makes you feel so relieved that you just dropped every weight off your shoulder on all of that. And yeah, and just like with that Michael Bernard Beckwith quote, there are so many friggin' wise people who I very much respect who put out a lot of quotes that sometimes trigger my other parts of my fears that make me feel like all that you want, that's a little bit of a fantasy, you know? Like, that's a bit too much. That's a bit too simplistic. Yeah, all that.
That's a bit too simplistic. To me, it feels like you whittled down your vision or the feelings to the most, like, you've whittled it down to the very essence of what you want to feel.
Yeah.
There's nothing complicated. There's nothing convoluted. You're not asking for, you know,
I don't want 19 yachts.
You don't,
no.
You know, it doesn't, I don't know. It feels so, like, pure.
It does feel pure to me too. It does. Yeah. That it's true. It's like, you know, you're sure of some things. I'm sure of that. I'm sure that that is what my heart wants. I'm sure of it. Yeah. 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 And that's the bar. That's the bar that I am. I think I'm hurtling towards in the void also, but there's this part of me sometimes that notices like in the collapse of like my brain is like trying to go back to the other bar for a minute and I'm like, ugh, no. Yeah.
What, how, okay, I'm reading this book right now. This is where my brain's going. I'm reading this book right now. It's a little bit off topic, but maybe not. But it's called Happy Money.
Okay. Who's it by?
Oh, and his name is escaping me. We'll have to we'll have to write it down in the show notes. But it's called Happy Money, and it's simple. And he talks about like, is your money happy or is it sad? Or is it angry or is it guilty or is it shameful or is it resentful or is it, and money has energy. And it's got me thinking about money, yes, but it's also got me thinking about other areas of life of, um, you know, there's this, there's this energy, there's this energy shift that happens within before, you know, things start to change outside. It's like the inside out.
Yeah.
And so what he invites us to do with when in Happy Money is to like change your feeling about money, change your feeling about paying that bill. Like, oh, I am so grateful I have the resources, even if they're coming from a, you know, a loan or a line of credit. It's like, I am so grateful I have the resources to pay this bill.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I think about, I've started to think about the taxes that come off our paychecks every 2 weeks, you know, and the money that just gets sent to the government. And I start to think, oh, I'm so grateful that I get to, you know, give back to my country in this way. Or you just like changing our mind about the thing that's causing the stress, you know? And, and, and then of course I'm only like a couple chapters into the book, but we know where it's going. It's like that changes the energy. You know, the energy of what you receive and what gets called into your experience. And so this is different because we're not necessarily talking about money, although money is part of.
It's definitely one of the things I want to receive more openly.
Right. Right. But my question for you with that perspective is, let me go back. What is coming up for you when I share that?
I don't know. Maybe multiple subtle things. One is like, totally believe that. One thing that I noticed to be true is that, okay, like two things are true at once. I absolutely do want to receive more and more easily. Just like that is very true. And sometimes I don't notice what I have. You know, like for example, all of the things I'm describing, like the feeling of that kind of freedom that I want every day, I have that today. You know, I think about this. Okay, so I have this whole day. We have no other work today. My kids aren't here. There's no kids here. I got to wake up this morning and you're like, how are you feeling? Do you want to have a conversation? Do you not? And I was like, oh, well, this is how I'm feeling. And I got to tell you the truth, tell you that I'm uninspired. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be vulnerable about this. And then, you did the same thing. And and then we decided, and I was like, but I do want to talk to you. I do want you to come over. And then, so now we're doing it. And so I'm getting to live a day like that. So that's here. And appreciating it feels really good because that's what I need to do. Because today, if I want to, I get to be that person who gets to indulge in that. And sometimes what stops me is thinking, yeah, but I don't get to have that every day. So it does feel so important to be here in the moments when I am receiving what I want. It feels so important. It feels like if there's any action or doing, then that's what it is. It's like being here and appreciating what I am receiving, what is here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like the key.
Yeah.
The most important, like, quote unquote action
Yeah.
you could possibly take right now.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing that comes up for me is I find it extremely challenging to tap into gratitude when, like when you were describing like I've tried to muscle my way through that of like, I'm so glad I'm paying this bill.
But it's not true.
It's not true. And I've like tried I'm like, you are grateful. It's getting paid. It would feel shittier if you couldn't do this right now, right? And I can't access it. Like so it's like so true. And sometimes sometimes I can, sometimes I can't.
I also wonder, though, if there's wisdom in that for you. Because something I know about you is that you actually would much prefer to live off grid. Where with no government like contact or assistance, period. And grow your own food and create your own power and chop your own wood. And that is actually true for your soul.
Yes.
Not true for my soul.
Right.
No.
So funny.
Not true for my soul.
It's so funny.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think there's wisdom in what you're saying, is that this bill actually doesn't feel aligned to your soul, and so of course there is always things we have to do in the moment while visioning for what the future looks like. And so it's about, sometimes in that gap in between, for me anyway, it's about perhaps the temporariness of it, or almost even the appreciation of understanding this is actually what I don't want.
Yeah.
This is actually helping me get clearer and clearer and clearer about how I want to live.
Yeah.
What I do want.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That feels true. And I've had like the thought a couple times. One thing that I have been trying to shift is like, sometimes I'm in a phase where the universe is showing me so much of what I don't want.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh gosh. And I go in and out of, sometimes I listen to or read a lot of Abraham Hicks, and they're like, that's wonderful when you experience contrast, because then, there's like, I think they call it like a rocket of desire, goes in the opposite direction. And so I have been like, well, I am so blessed with contrast. And, yeah. I do know that I want the opposite of this or that, or yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning of this conversation, when I shared that quote, you felt like you felt that. What do you feel now?
Back into more trusting, back into more surrender. I know this I know this place that I am energetically, metaphorically, physically. This is where this is the road to magic. Even though, in the parable of Trapeze, what's the line? What are the lines about this time feeling like it's
This
a
is
no
the time.
place?
Oh, the no place.
The no place. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
Maybe this morning, maybe this morning and maybe the beginning of the conversation, there's fear that like this is like a no place. And now, and then there's another part of the parable that says something like, what if this is like the realest place? I'm shifting back there. Okay, what if this is the realest place to be? It's the only real place for me to be.
Everything else would be inauthentic to you.
Yeah.
Everything.
There's peace in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's peace in that.
I think it's important to, what was really helpful for me going back to read my journals was not just reading the joyful, gratitude, happy pieces of my journal, but reading the, oh my gosh, kind of like complete, utter terror, fear of, I don't know. It feels like that I am, that swinging from trapeze bars and what is below me could literally crush me.
Yeah.
And this will be the one that does me in.
Yeah.
I will never make it, And just reading that, it zoomed me out.
Right.
Took me way back.
Yeah.
And just reminded me of the whole journey, like the big journey. Like if you were to think where you were 7 years ago, think about that.
Right.
Yeah. Think about what you have created.
Oh, everything that like matters most. Yeah. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Okay, okay. So sometimes, you are also hurtling through space right now. And you have all of this wisdom about it, right? And so you're like, yes. And you just had this lovely exercise of gathering this. So your heart and soul and your mind, so much of you knows this is going to be just fine. And I am looking forward to the awe and wonder on the other side of it. But like, what else is here?
For me?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one for me. This is this gap, because this is not just about me, it's about my family. And so I don't feel totally in control of even the hurdle. You know what I mean? I don't feel totally in control of even the space between. There's something inside me that feels very solid.
Yeah.
But this actually has a lot to do with my husband and his dream and his company and the risks we have taken to grow his company, and the greatest risks we've ever taken in an entire life. Like if we crash and burn, we're literally crashing and burning.
Right.
Like it's massive.
Yeah.
And but we're doing it together. But this feels a little bit different. Like some different emotions are coming up because I'm not running this company, he is. So there's like this, I'm not really sure. There's this like different, there's a different energy of this hurdle for me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like surrender to the power of
our collective vision. Which is interesting. Like a collective vision. Yeah. It's like, I'm over here doing my part. And I'm doing taking those next steps, and I'm doing all my like energetic work, and And here we are hurtling through this void together. And it's scary. And part of my mapping out was like, wow, where we were as a family 7 years ago. Where we were as a family, Sean was working a really dangerous construction job. I was at a government job I wasn't passionate about. It was just like we were in a very different place in our lives.
Yeah.
And to see what has happened over the last 7 years in both of our lives, and like, the dreams we have been launching and the businesses we've been creating, and it's just like looking at it, it's unbelievable. But it's also like, whoa, we have like a lot more, we have a higher fall now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that's the void I'm in right now, is collecting or trusting the collective vision. Feels a little bit different.
Yeah. Is it, maybe there's no answer to this because it's just different, but is it easier because there's nothing you can do in someone else's company, or is it harder because you're extra out of control?
Oh, great question. I think a previous version of me would have said it's harder because I'm completely out of control. A version of me that really needed to control.
Yeah.
But in this scenario right here, right now, the person I am today, I think that's actually saying something. I think that's a sign of growth, a lot of growth. I think it's easier. I think maybe that's why I feel a little steady inside. I think it's easier because I think I'm watching him like fulfill his like dreams, and I trust him.
Yeah.
And I believe in him.
Yeah.
So he's going through a lot of like growing pains and stuff, but I get to be a support this time versus the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little different.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you the context of where I'm coming from with this next question. And I think we're actually going to maybe, whenever it feels right, we talked about doing a whole episode about me asking you questions that students want to know.
Okay, yeah.
Because there's so many times, like I've told you, that in a class or in reviewing someone's call, people will be just like thinking, like musing about their own life and thinking about like, I bet Taryn would be like this, or I wonder how Taryn does this, or I wonder, people have all these like ideas of you. And one theme is like, I notice a theme of everyone looking at you and being like, she moves through everything so gracefully.
Oh,
I bet she never yells at her kids.
oh,
I bet her windowsills are always dusted. Like they're really funny things. It's like, and then it even goes for I bet her windowsills are dusted. Her rugs are always vacuumed. How does she do that?
laugh. It's so funny.
Yeah. So my question, so coming from that perspective of people, because through your commitment to moving through these things, even if it feels messy in the short term, the way you just continue on your path, when you pull back and zoom out, it
does look
so
beautiful, doesn't it?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, like right now, even though you have all of this trust and beauty that is coming, right now,
what does it look? What does my life look like?
What's the messiest piece? Like not even everything, but just like what's the piece that feels messiest or hardest?
Oh, it's so funny to me. It's so funny because sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what? This is like chaos. Like I'll give you a snapshot of last night. Last night, Sean had a very, very, very stressful day at work, and he's working just like ridiculous hours. He's not sleeping very well. He's like, I'm worried about, he goes through these periods of intense stress and then it subsides, but it's just what he's doing is incredibly stressful. And so, um, I picked the kids up from, Shay was at a friend's house last night. And Cooper was at camp. So anyways, I got the kids home and it was like 8 o'clock at night and Sean's pacing on our driveway back and forth. And we know it's a serious call because his arms are flailing. He's like counting things and and I'm like, oh, okay, children, we cannot bother your father right now. Like we need to very quietly go into the house and please just go to bed tonight. Like, please. Shay is 8 and she's got so many hormones racing through her body right now. Like she's starting stuff, and at least once a day now, there's a pretty epic meltdown. Mm-hmm. And it's usually right before bed, especially after big days, like with camp and stuff. So I was like, oh, sweet Jesus, please not tonight. Because I'm now trying to get them to bed so that he can have the space and like process whatever's going on out there. And I'm also wanting to know what's going on out there. Right. So I've like cracked the windows open so I can hear the conversation, figure out what's happening. And I'm like trying to manage the kids and get them to bed, and Shay's freaking out. And I finally stood there and started bawling my eyes out with them. And I said, you guys, your dad is really stressed right now. He is doing something impossible, like impossible. And he needs us right now. He needs our support right now. He needs us to love him, but also give him quiet time and space. And I just like, I'm like, I don't even know if I should be talking to my kids this way, but I'm just like, I'm crying and I'm just begging them, please, like, please. And they both looked at me like big eyes, and like Cooper was like, I see you, Mom. I see everything you do for this family. I see how you keep everything together. And I was like, yeah. I'm feeling very unseen lately because I've been managing everyone else and trying to make sure Sean's got what he needs to like function in his day, and the kids are okay, and business is okay. And it's like, in that moment, I was just a puddle, Yeah. And then what I did after that was I reached out to Sean's parents and asked for help. And I said, we've got all this stuff. We've kind of fallen apart around us. We've got like, our lives are kind of unmanageable right now. And I'm like waving the white flag, and I'm like reaching out for help, like reaching out for support. We had just like a lawnmower break, weeds are growing everywhere. The house, there's mold in the bathroom. There's some cupboards that are coming off the hinges, and now Sean's working all these hours, and I'm like, I don't know how to fix I don't even know how to start the lawnmower. I'm going to learn, but I'm also really overwhelmed right now. Like, is there anyone out there who can help? Yeah. And sure enough, Sean's dad was over at 8 a.m. this morning, hand mowed our large property that usually needs like a John Deere. Yeah. And it was like, oh, I feel so seen. I feel so supported. And this morning when I was journaling, because fears still always creep in for me. This morning when I was journaling, I said, we need a little miracle. We need some good news. We need a little miracle. We need some good news. And I was just like that was it, but it wasn't a beg or a plea. It was just like, okay, we need a little miracle here. We need some help. We need some support. We need some help. And so after Sean's dad came over, I sent Sean a picture of the yard and was like, help's on the way, the support's here, and I said, today, let's believe a miracle's coming. Like, a miracle's coming today. Yeah. Or soon, Yeah. And shortly after that, I got a Voxer from Carolyn McGuire. So as an alumni of the MRA, she's got this thing with me where it's like her soul knows when I need a message.
Yeah.
And she sent me the most beautiful message about trusting the process and about how it was just like so perfectly timed. I was in tears. I was just like, no, it's not like a miracle's come yet, but it just felt like, it's like when you open up and you reach out for support, it comes in mysterious ways. You know,
she was an angel delivering a message.
She was an angel delivering a message for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my life looks like right now.
Yeah.
It's emotional, and it's there's some really hard days right now. There's some, again, like being the CEO of a SaaS startup business is one of the hardest roles in the universe, and that's what we're dealing with. That's what Sean's doing right now, and that means that's what our whole family is doing right now. Right. You know?
Yeah.
That's what my life looks like. And then I'm running a company, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like,
and there's that.
And there's the MRA. So yeah.
So what is your, not all of them, because I think there's probably like maybe a million things you're doing. But if you had to name like one, maybe two of the actions that are taking you to your vision, whether that's like your vision or like your family's collective vision, like what are your actions right now to keep?
My most important is journaling in the morning. If I had one mind reset practice that, like, I could only keep one, it would be that. It would be that time where I get to connect with myself. I get to sift. I wake up and my natural, I think I'm more anxiety prone in my body, and my natural inclination is to go to worry and go to fear, and I can start to feel it buzzing inside my body. And that journaling process alleviates that. It releases that, and it reconnects me to where I'm going, who I want to be today, how I want to show up in the world, what's important, what matters, what are my next steps today? Is it to sit and feel, or is it to actually move into action in some like actual concrete way?
Yeah.
And that process is a untangling of my mind so that I can get really, really centered and clear about what it is that I want. And I think over the, if I look at my journaling over the last 7 years, what's that voice was always there, that guidance, that process has always been the same. But what's getting stronger and stronger and stronger as time goes on is the clarity of that part of me. Like the crystal clarity of that part of me is getting, it's like my mind is like releasing the need to interpret that part or to make sense of that part or to create house on, and it's becoming more pure and clearer. And it's really simple. It's like very simple.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the how you were saying before, you wish you could go give a message back to yourself in those other moments. It made me think about, remember the exercise, like, I forget where you had me do it the first time, but you tap into the wisdom of your future self to give you a message for right now.
Oh, that's at the beginning of part 2 of Coach Pathway, right? It is.
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
They write a note. You write a letter to yourself.
Yeah.
And to you. It's the same exercise, but you're actually thinking about a vision board exercise that I had you do once.
Yes.
Like a vision night.
Yes.
Yes.
So that was when I wrote that. I remember in that vision night, I was crying because I was like, And everyone was so lovely. It was like no one cared that I cried. Not a lot of people talked to me.
You were there alone.
I was there alone, and I sat and I cried. You and Dawn were like, and I was like,
it's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wrote. I forget how you had us tap into our future selves, but write a message for yourself right now. And I went back and I read that like a few times later, and it was like, man, I swear to you, I have zero doubt that you did help me call on my future self for the exact message I needed. And I kept reading it. And even when I was through it, I was like, yes, like that's amazing. Like that it was just amazing. And the other day I was scrolling on social media and someone was talking about, just like the quantum nature of things and, future, past, and working with their future selves. So I'm curious, like right now, if you were to connect to your future self, what does she have to share with you right now for where you are right now?
So what's coming up is just like this little smile of I have a feeling it's not going to turn out exactly how I think it's going to turn out. Just like my entire life has shown me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because sometimes it turns out even better. And the message is like very, very simply, trust the process. Just trust it.
Yeah.
One foot in front of the other, trust.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like with a smile of knowing, oh, just trust the process.
Yeah.
Like just wait.
Right.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I really do believe it's possible.
Wait, what's possible?
I believe my vision's possible.
Yeah.
I believe your vision's possible.
Yeah.
I believe without a doubt that anyone who taps in to their deepest, deepest, deepest yearnings and like unravels and untangles to get to the heart of their deepest yearnings.
Yeah.
It's funny when I was looking at a lot of what I was visioning before when I first started this process many years ago, a lot of it had to do with being a celebrated author, being on a stage and being like a recognized thought leader. Those are not things I want anymore.
Right.
Like, and I was reflecting on that. I'm like, why? Did I give up on that dream? No, it's like something deeper happened.
Right.
I got to the why beneath what was it that I actually yearned for?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when we go through that process of getting to the heart, the simplicity of what it is that we want, that's why when you talk about your vision, I'm like, you've got it so simple. It's so simple, so pure. When we connect to that, like that is possible.
Yeah.
That is real.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's like very possible. In fact, what if life itself wanted that for you too?
Yeah.
And so much about getting there is about getting out of our own way. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who hasn't been around the block of this a few times, like doesn't have the benefit of going back and seeing the evidence, and is like feels like I feel like right now, like I am your knowing is a little I believe everything you're saying and I know it too, but it's like mine's just a little just like you're like you have these messages, you're connected, and I'm like I'm right there with you, just down here. And I'm imagining someone who's like even further down of like no, it's out of reach. The trust, the process is out of reach. I'm asking for other people also for like a moment where I slip back even further.
Yeah.
Like what? I don't know. What do you reach for when you've slipped away from being able to trust the process?
I think I reach for the emotions that are making me feel that way. And like really being with them.
Yeah.
And like feeling them and letting all that come up and creating space for myself to journal or to cry or to meditate or to have a coaching session and like honoring that that's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's actually part of the process.
Right.
And you can't have one without the other. You can't. And that quote, Robert Frost says, the only way out is through. Like I believe that with every ounce of my being.
Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta be with it.
Yeah, you do.
You just gotta, that's the part of the path you're on.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah.
I think I'm being with some stuff. Yeah.
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 And that, even though it's uncomfortable, is just as important, just as vital as the good feelings.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Totally.
It's the journey.
Yeah.
Whew.
Okay, even though I feel like you've been clear this whole time, what's clearer for you now than this morning?
What is clear for me now in this conversation? Okay, I think two things. One is the zooming out, like the importance of taking time to zoom out, to look at the whole journey. It's very humbling. I find when I zoom in, it's like I think the world is like revolves around me, and it's just like it's just so like when I get to zoom out, I don't know, feel very small.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really landed with me in this conversation is just the way you shifted in your energy when you started talking about your day today and the what's here now. Like what is here now, to just how do you embody that right now?
Yeah.
And just listening to you like shift into that energy and like talk about the receivership you're in this moment was powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you?
What's clear for me now? Well, that the question you asked me that made me tap into what's here now, that is that's a reminder that feels very important to keep. Like I need to keep doing that. I need to keep connecting to what's here and even possible right now in this moment. Because something that trips me up is, I was telling you this earlier, my inclination, my brain's fear-based inclination is to go, how long until the universe brings me this miracle that like just makes me feel on, how long till the magic? How long? And I think of it as like, my brain thinks of it as this moment where this unexpected opportunity comes, this unexpected message, this like, I never really think about a lottery ticket, but the equivalent of an energetic lottery ticket. How long? And that's a really hard, that doesn't work well when I'm thinking, how long? I think the possibilities are so far away. To remember that there's like a portal through the now. There's a possibility in more ways than I think. Sometimes my brain thinks trying to tap into what's possible or what I'm grateful now, it's going to feel like I'm faking it. And I hate faking things. But sometimes that's not what it feels like. Sometimes if I sink into the present moment and notice what's actually here, I actually end up somewhere that feels in a very real way, really beautiful. And really, really need to, not need to, I mean, that need to, I really need to keep doing that. And maybe that I really need to keep doing that. And the other thing, it actually came to me, I guess about like a week ago. But it's coming up really strongly again in this conversation is I had a moment like a week or so ago, I think I maybe told you about it, where I was walking through my house and I just felt myself really surrender to like to a deeper level than I have been lately, where my mind let go a little bit, like my mind let go of the steering wheel, and I really leaned back to give the universe some space to come in. And because the universe is, I'm not controlling the world anyway, but I think I am.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the other key, I think, for me right now. I really like the feeling of that space of me letting, like me just getting out of the driver's seat, actually. I'm still the boss of myself, right? Like I still, like, have sovereignty and I'm, but it feels really good to lean back and to say, okay, universe, actually, like, I don't want to steer this ship. You do it. That would, and sometimes it feels like that's almost like a cop out. I don't know why. My brain's like, no, but I don't believe it is, but my brain sometimes thinks it's irresponsible and it's like a cop out to let the universe take me somewhere. But that's what feels good. That's what I want. I want to remember to, I want to remember that, I really want to make room for the universe to come in and co-create with me. Really want that. Yeah.
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 I love this.
I know.
This was good. We almost didn't have this conversation today.
We really almost didn't. Yeah. I'm glad we did.
Me too.
I'm glad we did for multiple reasons. One, just because it's like so cathartic. I'm like, oh, I feel better now. Also because, what, when we very, very first started having, well, I mean, we always have these conversations, you and I, but when we very first were like, maybe other people want to hear these conversations we're having, one of our intentions was to not just focus on the easy, shiny parts of things, And so I'm so glad on a day where I was feeling like trust and inspiration is eluding me a little. I'm so glad that we just waded into it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. For more information, you can visit our website at www.themindrebel.com or visit us on Instagram or Facebook at the_mind_rebel_academy. And these links can all be found in the show notes below. If you like this episode, we would be so grateful if you shared it with your fellow bold dreamers.